How's it going, guys? This is Andre here with the Kevin Breeze channel, and in this video, we're going to be doing a comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A52 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A32 5G. So let's get started. So the Samsung Galaxy A52 5G has a 6.5-inch Super AMOLED display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 407, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and a screen-to-body ratio of 84.1%. We got a hole punch here for the front-facing camera, and this camera is 32 megapixels. The A32 5G has a 6.5-inch TFT display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 270, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and a screen-to-body ratio of 81.6%. We got a water drop notch for the front-facing camera here, and this camera is 13 megapixels. So even though the display is the same size on these two phones, the Samsung Galaxy A52 5G is definitely going to have a better quality with a higher resolution 1080p versus 720p. This is really going to make a difference. The PPI is insanely higher on the A52 5G with 407 versus the 270 on the A32 5G. Not only that, but a Super AMOLED display is going to have better quality colors than a TFT display. And besides the actual display itself, going into the design, I think the hole punch front-facing camera looks a lot better than this water drop notch. The hole punch looks a lot cleaner and a lot more modern versus the water drop notch that looks a little clunky and a little bit outdated. And of course, as you can probably tell by the screen to body ratio, the bezels on the A32 5G are thicker. Now make of that what you will. If you prefer thicker bezels, then that might be a benefit in favor of the A32 5G, but I personally like the thinner bezels because I think it makes the phone look a lot more modern. Now with the A52 5G, depending on the variant you get, you're going to be getting either 128 or 256 gigabytes of internal storage with microSD card expansion. The A32 5G only has one option with 128 gigabytes. Whether you get the base variant of the A52 5G or the A32 5G or the 256 gigabyte variant of the A52 5G, no matter which one you get, it's going to be a great amount of storage because 128 gigabytes of internal storage is quite a lot. You're most likely not going to run out of space unless you're shooting a lot of 4K videos or something like that. If you're primarily using your phone for content creation that does involve large files like long videos, especially in 4K, but even a resolution like 1080p is still going to take up a decent amount of space. If you do plan on leaving those files on your phone a lot, then you might want to look into getting the 256 gigabyte variant of the A52 5G. But if you either don't take a lot of videos or you regularly transfer your files off of the phone as you're shooting them, then the 128 gigabyte variant of the A52 5G or the A32 5G that also comes with 128 gigabytes is going to be just fine. Unfortunately, neither of these phones have wireless charging, but both of them have a fingerprint scanner and face unlock, which is really nice to have both. That way, if one isn't working out for you, then you can use the other one. And plus, I know a lot of people have different preferences on how they like to unlock their phones, and this ensures that you'll be able to use your favorite way no matter what. The fingerprint scanner for the A52 5G is right here on the display. Let's go ahead and try it out real quick. That was really nice. One more time. And there we go. As you can see here, it is really fast and responsive. No problems with it at all. And I personally think in-display fingerprint scanners are the best just because of how convenient they are, combined with the modern touch it gives the phone. The fingerprint scanner for the A32 5G is actually right here on the power button instead of the display. Now, I really like this positioning as well. I used to like this one better than the in-display fingerprint scanners, but honestly, the in-display scanners really have grown on me. I think they look so nice that in comparison, I don't even think that power button fingerprint scanners are that much better. Really, the only benefit that this kind of fingerprint scanner has over the in-display one is it's slightly faster just because of its positioning. Let me show you. So when you're unlocking the phone, unless you have something like the tap to wake or lift to wake on, then you're gonna have to touch the power button anyway to unlock your phone. And in doing so, you're just gonna unlock it in general. And I think that that is really nice. In addition to that, there are some features where you can actually pull down the notification center with the power button just by going like that. And if you're interested in learning exactly how to do that, then we do have a tips and tricks video for the Samsung Galaxy A32 5G that will walk you through everything you can do with it. But anyway, this fingerprint scanner is really fast and responsive as well, technically a little bit faster than the A52 5G's fingerprint scanner, again, mostly because of where it is. And physical fingerprint scanners, in my experience, are just a tiny bit more responsive. Let's give it one more try. So again, this one is even faster, but on the other hand, I think this one looks a lot nicer. Now let's take a look at these phones' rear camera setups. The A52 5G has a 64 megapixel rear camera, a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera, a 5 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 5 megapixel macro camera. So this phone has pretty much every camera feature available except for a telephoto lens, which most mid-range phones don't have anyway. And these are really high quality cameras as well. The Samsung Galaxy A32 5G has a 48 megapixel rear camera, an 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 5 megapixel macro camera. So both of these phones have really high quality cameras. I would say the A52 5G camera is going to be a little bit better quality. But if you want to see the full photo samples, be sure to check out the full reviews of these phones on the channel. But I definitely would say the A52 does have a bit of an advantage. Not only does it have higher megapixels in the regular rear camera, but also has a higher quality ultra wide and depth sensing camera. And with a better depth sensing camera, portrait mode is going to be more reliable as well. As far as video goes, the A52 5G again is going to have a little bit of an advantage being able to shoot 4K in both the cameras, whereas the A32 5G can only shoot 4K in the rear camera and is limited to 1080p in the front. Now, even if you're planning on shooting a lot of videos with these phones, 4K might not really matter a whole lot because it really depends. Not everybody does shoot videos in 4K, even if you're actually doing content creation. 4K, of course, is a higher quality, but in a lot of situations, the videos are compressed anyway. So unless you're going for something super cinematic, shooting in 1080p is usually okay. But if you're looking for the absolute best quality in videos between these two phones, I would say the A52 5G is going to have an advantage. Now internally, depending on the variant you get, the A52 5G is going to get 6 or 8 gigabytes of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 750G processor. We ran a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on this phone and it came back with a single core score of 647 and a multi-core score of 1939. The A32 5G is getting 6 gigabytes of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 725G processor. On Geekbench 5, this phone came back with a single core score of 472 and a multi-core score of 1520. So there's definitely a noticeable difference in processing power between these two phones. Now keep in mind that with a multi-core score of 1520, the A32 5G is near a threshold where I've noticed phones at the threshold and past it don't really show that much of a difference in basic activities as far as web browsing and all that kind of thing goes. It's really not going to be a whole lot different as you go up in processing power from there. But the thing you will notice is performance when it comes to things like high performance gaming, photo and video editing, and that sort of thing. Those activities that are really taxing on the processor are definitely going to be affected more by the processing power, especially when one phone has more RAM than the other. So in the case of the A52 5G, if you have the version that has 8 gigabytes of RAM, then you're most likely going to do better with something like a high performance game versus the A32 5G that only has 6 gigabytes of RAM. That being said, we're going to do a quick demonstration and see what these phones look like in action. We're going to start by opening Google Chrome. Now we're going to try a web page. So as you can see, there was really not that much of a difference. They were really close. I would say the A52 5G is just a tiny bit faster when we pulled up that web page. But overall, the web browsing and more basic activities are really not going to show that much of a difference in processing power. That difference is really going to show up when you're doing more demanding activities like gaming and photo and video editing and that sort of thing. Now, as far as the battery goes, The A32 5G does have an advantage here with the 5000 mAh battery versus the A52 5G with the 4500 mAh battery. Now this isn't a huge difference, but it's a difference all the same. So if you're in a situation where you're on the go a lot and can't plug your phone in very often, but still have to use it throughout the day, then you're probably gonna have a bit of an advantage with the A32 5G just because that battery is a tiny bit bigger. Now both of these phones have NFC, so they can both use Google and Samsung Pay, which is really nice. One thing the A52 5G has that the A32 5G doesn't is dust and water resistance, and this is up to 1 meter for 30 minutes, so that's actually really impressive. Typically, I haven't seen dust and water resistance very often on mid-level phones like these. It's usually something that flagship phones have, so it's nice to see it on something like the A52 5G. If you're in a rough environment where there's lots of dust, or if you're exposed to water a lot, then you might want to consider that because the A52 5G with that dust and water resistance is going to be a little bit more durable. Now, in conclusion, which of these phones is better? I would say that overall, as far as general specs go, the A52 5G is going to be the better device. It has a higher quality camera, a much better display, a better looking design overall, and a more powerful processor that's going to be able to handle a little bit more. If you're looking for something really powerful that's going to be able to take the best quality pictures you can possibly get, or if you shoot a lot of videos, the capability of shooting 4K in both the rear and the front cameras might come in handy there. The A52 is most likely going to be your best bet between these two. But if you're more concerned about the battery and being able to use your phone a lot throughout the day, then the A32 5G might make sense just because it has the biggest battery between the two. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.